There are several theories that explain how groups are formed, how members benefit in groups, how decision-making in groups are made, and how some groups succeed while others fail. The discussion that we want to have now is on the social identity theory of groups. And the theory is one of the theories that can be used to understand certain aspects when it comes to matters of groups. So I want us to have a discussion on this subject, and our discussion will focus on three principal areas. Number one, we want to look at the assumptions of the groups, or what we call the key arguments or propositions of the group. We also want to look at how individuals develop their identity in groups. And then we want to conclude by trying to understand how identities that individuals have formed in the groups can be threatened or lost. So I want to welcome you to the discussion. Just as an overview, we want to understand social identity as an individual's knowledge of belonging to certain social groups, together with some emotional and valuation significance of that group membership. In other words, how do people consider themselves as members of the group? How do they attach themselves emotionally to the group? And do they really value, do they think that their value increases or decreases by being a member of a given group? So these are the issues that we want to confront in this discussion. While one's personal identity refers to self-knowledge associated with unique individual attributes, people's social identity indicates who they are in terms of the groups to which they belong. And social identity theory, which explores the phenomenon of the in-group and out-group, was proposed by a scholar called Henry Tajfel and John Turner in the 1970s. And the theory explains group phenomena based on the social context of the group, categorization, identity, norms, and setters. The theory also aims to specify and predict the circumstances under which individuals think of themselves as individuals or as group members. There are certain assumptions or arguments that have been put forward by this theory. One is that individuals are intrinsically motivated to achieve positive distinctiveness and strive to achieve or maintain positive social identity, and that individuals seek membership to groups that help them to define who they are and achieve distinctive, positive, and favorable identity. In other words, this theory is saying that while an individual can join any group, or while there are several groups that are open to individuals for them to join, individuals join groups that, one, helps them to identify who they are, help them to achieve a given distinction between them and members of the group, and also a group that offers them positive or favorable identity. In other words, they want to join a group that members of society will give them positive or favorable attributes. People do not want groups that, through groups, they get labels that are negative. The second argument of the theory is that people generally prefer to maintain a positive image of the groups to which they belong, and they always strive to project positive attributes of the group while suppressing the negative attributes. In other words, where individuals are in terms of a group, they always strive to ensure that the group has a positive image. And at all times, they do what is within their powers and ability to project that positive image. And where possible, they suppress any image, that any attribute that is likely to give the group a negative image. The third assumption of the theory is that group boundaries are permeable and that individuals are free agents who are capable of moving from one group to another in search of groups that offer them the best chance of achieving distinctive identity. In other words, groups do not have boundaries that are fixed. Groups are not closed. Groups are open. And therefore, individuals who feel that a group they have joined is not giving them the distinctive attributes they thought they would enjoy from the group, then such individuals are free and often seek to leave such groups and join other groups that give them a positive image and a positive distinction. The other assumption of the theory is that individuals are often willing to change their own behavior to conform to the norms of a group in order to make them feel accepted and find a sense of belonging. In other words, individuals strive to ensure that their behavior conforms with the normative order of the group, so that you do not want to join a group in which you cannot fit in terms of the behavioral requirements. And therefore, as soon as individuals join groups, they strive as much as possible to change their behaviors to meet the expectations and the regulations and guidelines that are given by the group. The last assumption is that the behavior of individual members in a group is determined by the character and motivation of the individual and group members. In other words, there is a way in which individual himself can change to conform to the group, but there's a way in which individual's character and behavior is shaped by group members. In other words, there is an element of interdependence when it comes to shaping of member behavior. So that some members, it is their behavior that changes in conformity with the group, but for others, it's the group members that influences the way how other members behave. There are certain stages that members go through in search of their identity in the group. And these stages are three. The first stage is what we call social categorization. Social categorization. This is a process in which individuals define themselves according to their position or place in a social group, rather than their individual characteristics. Social categorization results in an emphasis on the similarities of people in the same group and the differences between people in separate groups. People first categorize themselves and others into social groups based on external or internal criteria. For instance, individuals first categorize themselves, for example, as a black person, a white person, a Christian, a Muslim, a student, a bus driver, a teacher, among others. Then, once an individual has categorized himself as such, for instance, if an individual categorizes himself as a politician, then the individual will begin to act the way politicians act. For instance, they would wish to attend functions that their colleagues attend. They would wish to be called honorable members, and they would wish to basically behave in a way individuals also behave. Therefore, with regard to categorization, what it means is that once an individual identifies himself as a member of any given group, then the individual now starts behaving as though the way the group is required. For example, if a group puts on certain uniforms that identify them from other groups, then the element of categorization will also require the individual to start putting on uniform and developing characteristics that go with the desires of the group for which they have joined. So that's the first stage. The second stage is what we call social identification. And social identification is the process of identifying as a group member, which leads individuals to behave in the way that they believe members of that group should behave. This is therefore the stage in which individuals adopt the identity of the group they have joined once they have categorized themselves as members of a particular group. And social identification implies that people identify with a group, invest emotionally in such a group, and change their behavior to some extent because of their membership. For example, an individual who has categorized himself as a politician, the chances are that he or she will adopt the identity of politicians, such as adopting the title honorable, appointing private security guard, and expecting to be treated with to be offered preferential treatment wherever they are, expecting to be acknowledged, and in that case, they are now adopting characteristics and personalities that go with that particular group. Individuals will also attempt to align their emotional intelligence with that of politicians and adjust their self-esteem to match that of politicians. For instance, whereas when an individual was a private citizen before joining politics, there are certain things the individual was not able to do. For instance, being violent. Then if violence becomes a mean of survival within the political arena, then individual is also likely to adopt violent tendencies. And in the process, the individual might, in the process, seek to behave just in the same manner. The third stage is what we call social comparison. Social comparison, this is a process by which people compare their group with other groups in terms of prestige and social standing. After categorizing and identifying with a group, individuals compare their group to others, which is often biased in favor of one's own group. And therefore, to maintain self-esteem, one must perceive the in-group, or rather that is the group they belong, as having a higher social standing than an out-group. Social comparison is critical in maintaining competition and rivalry between groups. Competition and hostility between groups is therefore not only a matter of competing for resources, but also for competing for identities. People therefore compare their groups to others in order to acquire esteem for their identified group membership. For example, individuals would always wish to project their group as the best compared to the other groups within where they belong. For instance, a political party might want to compare itself with other parties, one by indicating that or by declaring that it has a better manifesto, it has a better internal democracy, it has a better conflict resolution mechanism, and it has better policies. So by doing so, people would wish to project their groups as being more superior compared to others in various areas that they can compare each other with. So groups too, individuals, once they join the group, they always want to ensure that they compare themselves with other groups. And they want at all times to project an image that makes their group look better compared to their groups in the same category. Now, there are also ways through which individuals can enhance their status within the group, because status becomes important, and status also helps in terms of giving members are given element of distinctiveness. So there are several strategies that individuals can employ to enhance their status within the group. One is what we call individual mobility. And this refers to how a person's socioeconomic situation improves relative to that of members in the outgroups. And this can be measured in terms of earnings, income, social class, and well-being in dimensions such as health and education. Individuals attempt to leave their groups when they view their groups favorably to join other groups with higher social standings. Individuals' mobility allow people to pursue individual position improvements irrespective of the group. Therefore, individuals disassociate from groups that fail to improve their fortunes and join those that can improve their status. When we talk of individual mobility, we simply mean the movement from one social status to another. If a person joins a group that it considered as likely to help him attain a better status than his counterparts in other groups, and the individual realizes that this is not possible, the next thing the individual will do is to abandon that group, leave that group, and join another group that he or she feels has the potential of enabling him to enhance his status. The other way through which individuals can improve their status in groups is through what we call social competition. Social competition. And by social competition, we refer to the struggle or rivalry between individuals or groups for limited resources, status, or power. In the context of a group, it refers to strategies used by group members to enhance their social status by collectively working to improve their situation. It is used when in-groups compete directly with an out-group with the objective of reversing the group's social positions in one or more areas. Social competition is predicted to occur when group boundaries are considered impermeable and when status relations are considered to be reasonably unstable. Competition can contribute to the formation of social hierarchies and layers, with some groups occupying higher positions than others. For example, take political parties. They often compete for political power, and sometimes the groups that win majority of seats in parliament and also win the presidency is likely to gain a higher status. Like in Kenya, they produce a president, and the president appoints the cabinet and controls most of the national resources. Again, members that have won greater seats in parliament also have the potential of appointing their members to important committees of parliament, thereby being critical and essential when making certain decisions that affect parliament. Through that, the status of that group increases. And by increasing the status of a group, the expectation is that even members' status within a particular group is enhanced. The other one aspect of increasing individual status is what we call social creativity. This is a process by which in-group members enhance the social standing of their existing group by adjusting some element of the group comparison. Social creativity focuses on how people strategically reinterpret and frame intergroup dynamics to foster a sense of positive social identity, even in the face of perceived threats or inequality. Social creativity can be achieved by comparing the in-group to the out-group on some new dimensions, changing the values assigned to the attributes of the group, and choosing an alternative out-group by which to compare the in-group. It can also be achieved by emphasizing the strengths and positive aspects of in-group and downplaying perceived weaknesses or negative attributes of either groups. For example, quite a lot of times, no group kindly concedes criticism that ideally puts it in bad light. And at all times, members of the group will try as much as possible to ensure that they project a positive image of their groups. The expectation here is that a group that has a positive image, that positive image flows to its members, so that a group that has a better image has the potential of also having members that have a better image, so that a better image of a group, groups work so hard to improve their image with the hope that such an image will also enhance the status of members. And this is what they mean by social creativity. Social creativity simply means attempts by groups to enhance their status. We have seen, for example, groups developing new rules if they felt that the old rules were projecting into bad light. Groups change their colors if they feel that the colors they had previously was not giving them a favorable image. And groups also recruit new members. They also develop new policies and regulations if, in their belief, they believe that such efforts would enhance the status of its members and improve the image of the group. The last issue that I want us to look at is what we call threats to identity. There are certain things that can threaten the identity of members, and in the long run, make members feel that they are not part and parcel of a given group. So let's look at threats to identity. One of the threats to identity is what we call group status threat. Group status threat, this occurs when the perceived competence or status of a group is devalued, often leading to defensive reactions or attempts to restore the group's position. And group status is threatened when members believe that the moral standing and integrity of their group is being called into question. Group members can also experience social identity threat when they think that their group is not sufficiently acknowledged as a separate entity with the unique characteristics. It may also occur when a group experiences unfair treatment or negative stereotypes and thus exclusion in critical issues. For example, we have political parties. Some parties might be associated with corruption. Others might be associated with violence. Others might be associated with dictatorship. Others might be perceived as belonging or being patronized by specific individuals or by a specific ethnic group. These are negative status, and these negative status, they devalue, they lower the value, they lower the quality, and they lower the position and prestige of a group. So we are saying that the identity of members becomes threatened when the status of the entire group is threatened. For example, if a political party merges with another political party, then it means one of the parties loses its status or both of them loses their status, because the moment they are swallowed, a lot of things do not fall into place. For instance, their party symbol might disappear, the color of the party might disappear, the officials that were known to influence decision making might no longer have such powers because of the merger. So all this can threaten the disappearance of the identity of the members of the group. The other threat is what we call categorization threat. Categorization threat refers to the psychological experience of feeling unfairly judged or stereotyped based on group membership. Categorization threat occurs when individuals are involuntarily assigned stereotypical characteristics or when they are judged based on their group membership. For instance, a man who is an accountant by profession being addressed as a member of a political party instead of her profession. For example, I could be a professional lawyer, and because I belong to a given political party, I'm constantly being referred to as a member of that party instead of my profession being the one as a point of reference. So this one can threaten my identity as an individual. And this becomes even more poignant if linking me to a particular group paints me negatively. For example, if the group is corrupt, a violent group, then by linking me to the party or to the group, the intention here is not to see my professional aspects as a lawyer, but to see me more in the prism of the negative attributes that have been attached to a given group. So categorization threat is also a major threat that affects individuals' identity. The other identity is what we call acceptance threat. And this one is about individuals experience acceptance threat when they expect to be included and accepted in a particular group they identify with, but the group fails to accept or include them. For example, when a member of a medical profession is barred from practice by regulatory authorities due to professional misconduct, then the individual is likely to experience what we call acceptance threat. It may also occur when a member of a political party is not invited for an important political meeting due to perceived lack of commitment or disrespect for the party hierarchy. So that as a member, you feel that you have been excluded. You have not been accepted to be a member of that group. That can threaten the identity of that member. So that's what we call identity threat. I wish to stop there and seek for or rather wish to ask you to record any information that you wish we need to look at more deeply when we have another time. Thank you so much.